everybody and everyone. Welcome to Booktrovert Besties. We are your hosts, Amber and Elaine, and today we are covering the book The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent.
We have some R-rated warnings, some trigger warnings, some heavy trigger warnings. So make sure you check them before you listen to us. Also, if you have good ones, try to put them away before you listen to us this year.
And this is a spoiler warning. We are going to be covering everything and anything in The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Plot, character relationships, the trials, the games, the love, everything. And if you haven't read it, go read it and come back after you have. Before we begin and dig into everything, we're going to do a really quick summary of what happened. In case it's been a few months since you've read it and you want to get caught up. This book takes place in a world where vampires and humans coexist. And we'll use that term lightly because vampires rule, they have all the privilege, and humans are really just left with the scraps. They're put in these districts where they're supposedly safe, but when they're not really. They're still hunted by vampires on a daily basis, and they're never really safe. In this world, there are three houses of vampires: the House of Shadow, the House of Blood, and the House of Night. In the House of Night, there are two clans, the Hayaj clan and the Rishon clan, and they are constantly at war with one another, constantly battling for power and for the throne. For the last 200 years, King Vincent is a Hayaj vampire. He has ruled the throne, and during a Rishon rebellion, he finds a little girl named Aurea, about 5 or 6 years old. Her house is decimated, her family is gone. And he sees something in her, some resilience, some distrust, and he immediately connects with her and says, I'm going to take care of her. So he basically adopts her, takes her back to his palace full of vampires, and raises her as his own. Now, fast forward till she's about 12 years old. She starts getting real curious about her family, if she has any distant relatives that could still be around, anybody who remembered who she was. And King Vincent says, well, I can't go to the Rishon territory unless there's a reason. If I go unprovoked, it would be an act of war. And you can't go, you're too frail and you're too weak. You're just a little human girl. So Aurea says, well, there must be some way. And he says, well, there is. There's one way. There's a competition every 100 years called the Karaji. It's in honor of our goddess Nyaxia, mother of night, queen of death, creator of vampires. And if you can win, if you can be the lone survivor, she will grant you a favor, a wish of your choice. He says, you can wish for strength. You can wish to be my courte, and it's a bond, and you would have access to all of my power and strength. So Aurea's like, sold. How do we do it? So they start training immediately. Flash forward a few more years. She's 16 at this point. She falls in love with handsome, young, recently turned boy vampire. The feelings are mutual. There's infatuation on both sides. But they decide to consensually have sex. She's ready to lose her virginity. She thinks she's in love. But during the throes of passion, newly turned young boy vampire loses control, bites her, almost drains her. And what started as a consensual experience quickly becomes non-consensual. She has to fight her way out of there. She goes to her father, and instead of comforting his daughter, in punishment for trusting another living soul with her life, he forces her to kill young, recently turned boy vampire. This is traumatic for her, obviously, and the only way she figures out how to work through her trauma is to go hunting bad vampires in the human districts at night. Bad vampires are vampires that shouldn't be lurking in the human districts anyway. They're preying on the young, the naive, the innocent, women, children, all of them, and she takes them out. It becomes cathartic for her. Fast forward to she's 23 and the Karaji begins. She is overnight transported to the Moon Palace, where all the contestants must stay during the course of the competition. There's 5 trials in 4 months. They're allowed to leave at night, but during the day they are literally sequestered here. Only the contestants and the ministers are allowed to even walk foot into the Moon Palace. The first trial comes, she survives, but she's badly injured. She's forced to make alliances with Rain, who ends up being our NNC, and his best friend, Niche. Alliances are important because during the third trial, you have to have allies to fight anyway, so it just makes sense to go ahead and ally herself with someone now that could possibly offer her a little bit of protection in the coming months. They start to learn each other's fighting styles. They're trying to train during the day. She's frustrated. She doesn't trust him. He's frustrated because she doesn't trust him. And one night, in a moment of sheer panic, she unleashes magic. Some dormant magic that she didn't even know she was capable of, blew him right out the window. From that point forward, her niche, who also has magic, starts to train her magic. So she's training her fighting style with Rain, training her magic with Niche. Still doesn't really trust them. Second trial comes. Again, she barely survives. But after the second trial, her and Rain start to come to an understanding. She realizes that he's a made vampire, not born. So he still remembers what it was like to be human. He still has glimpses of his humanity left. And he realizes that she hunts vampires in the districts at night So he says, why don't we do that together? And then we can really learn how each other moves during battle, how we can fight. So they come to an understanding of sorts and really start to connect. Before the third trial, there's an attack at the Moon Palace, and Niche is badly injured while they were off in the human districts fighting vampires. King Vincent says this is an act of war. It is a rebellion from the Rishon territory, and he declares war on the Rishon territory. While war is starting to ramp up outside the walls, the third trial comes. Her and Rain are able to, again, survive. They should theoretically part ways at this point because only one can survive the Karaji. So this is when most people who have allies part their ways, but they say, you know what? We've grown used to each other. We find comfort in each other. We'll just hang out a little bit longer. We still have 2 more trials to go. Nyaxia, in all of her glory, locks them in the Moon Palace day and night and forces them to stay there with no blood to feed the vampires. So they are beginning to starve. That's when the 4th trial starts, and they're transported to a different land. And in this land, there's an abundance of animals: deers, rabbits, squirrels. So hungry, starving vampires are quick to attack these animals, but their blood has been poisoned and it drives them insane. In a moment of hysteria, Aurea goes to find Rain. She doesn't want him to have to succumb to this poison, but he's already injured, and the only way for them to complete this next trial is for her to offer him her own blood to heal his injuries, to keep him from starving to death, and so that they can make it to the finish line. This is really a moment of 100% full trust for them, and it's really important. But they do complete the 4th trial, make it back to the Moon Palace when they should have weeks until the next one, but the ministers say no. Nyaxia grows impatient. There's war raging outside the Moon Palace walls. We have to conclude this. It has to be over. So the last trial will start tomorrow. So that night, her and Rain kind of admit their mutual attraction, their feelings for each other. They do have sex, they connect, but at the end they say, promise each other that tomorrow we're still going to fight 100%. We owe each other that much. We respect each other. We both came here to complete this competition, and we both have something we need from Nyaxia, so we're going to give it 100%. The day comes. There was 4 in the beginning. It obviously comes down to our 2, our MMC and our FMC, and they are fighting. Aurea's having a hard time fighting Rain, and she's holding back, and he says, don't hold back. And so he becomes very aggressive, forcing her to match his aggression, in which way we find out is what he wanted. She falls on top of him with her dagger to his chest, and she can't quite bring herself to force the blade in, so he does it for her. He puts the dagger in his own chest. That's not it, though. In her despair and anguish and desperation, when Nyaxia does come to her and says, I'm sorry you grieved, child, but what do you want? What do you wish? She says, I wish Rain would have won the Kajari. Rain's immediately brought back to life, and he looks at her almost like she's sorry for what he's about to do. But when Nyaxia says, what do you want, child? Rain says, I want you to restore all the power of the Rishan line to me, the heir. And when she does, he instantly becomes this powerful, magical heir of the Rishan territory, and his first act was to kill King Vincent right in front of Aurea. When King Vincent dies, in the hands of his daughter, she's cradling her father as he dies, he says, I wish I would have told you. She has no clue what he's talking about, but the minute he dies, the heir mark burns on her skin, and she realizes that she wasn't his adopted daughter. She was his biological daughter. She's now the heir to the Hayaj line, and she was half vampire, half human all along. In this moment, all the Rishan rebels want to kill her. I mean, she's a threat now to their throne. They just gained power back, and now she's threatening to take it. So they're saying, kill her. And Rain says, no, that's too easy a death. I will marry her. I will torture her during the day, rape her at night, and make her stand by my side while I take over her kingdom. He obviously doesn't mean any of this, but he's saying it to save her life, more or less. Not that she likes hearing it anymore. He does end up forcing her to marry him. And at the end of the book, she's really kind of torn between her feelings for Rain, her betrayal of him, her feelings about her father, and she doesn't know really what to do with any of it. But then Jasmine comes to her, and that was her dad's right-hand general, the leader of his army. And she says, we await your call. And at the very end of the book, she says, go and hide and stay safe. And when I figure things out, I will call for you. And that is how book 1 ends. So we can go ahead and rate it. You can go ahead and give it your rating.
I'm going to give it a 4 stars.
Okay.
Yeah, stick with the 4 star. It was good. It was really good, but it held my attention. And it takes a lot for a book to hold my attention. So it held my attention. It did what it needed to be done.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 4.2. Like you said, it was good. It held my attention. But a 5 stars a book I cannot set down. It's something I'm reading while I'm cooking, while I'm doing my makeup. I'm listening to the audiobook in the car. It's something I cannot get away from. This was good, and I really enjoyed reading it, but it wasn't that level of obsession.
Yeah.
I also, when I started, I was going to give it a lower rating because I thought for sure I had it figured out, but I was wrong. I thought she suffered from Stockholm syndrome. I thought he had kidnapped her, that he knew she was powerful, and that's why he wanted her to be his Corte. I was so sure. I even told my husband, I'm like, this is too predictable. I know exactly what's going to happen. And I was wrong. I did not call her being his biological daughter. Like, I was wrong. So I bumped it up to a 4.2 after that. But
So I didn't know that she was his biological daughter. I knew there was some type of relation there, just from the context clues from the books. From him, it's only you. It's only ever gonna be you. You're not like them. And just
you're not like,
those things kind of make me feel like she has some sort of relation. I didn't think daughter, but I did think there was some sort of relation from them.
right. Yeah, that one tricked me. I did not think she was his daughter, and I did not think she would become heir. Like, I did not see any of that coming. So that was fun. That was a fun ending. But let's talk about these trials, because that was the majority of the book. I mean, and I didn't go over them in our summary because I wanted us to talk about them, but they were interesting.
They were very interesting. Very
The first,
interesting. Almost like what's that movie? With the girl from Kentucky. What's her name?
Hunger Games?
Yes.
That's
Almost
what
like a Hunger Games.
said.
Yeah.
I was talking to my son, and I said, this book has games and trials, because that's such a common theme in fantasy. I mean, you think about Akatar with Feyre Under the Mountain. You think about Gaius, all the trials they have to get to graduate. Like, games and trials is a huge thing. And when I was talking to my son about it, he said, and like Hunger Games. And I was like, exactly like Hunger Games.
Yeah.
But these trials, and then when something gets repeated like that a lot in certain types of books, it can sometimes get boring, but I think this author did a really good job of doing it different. I like that they were all transported to the Moon Palace. And I really loved that each trial told a part of Nyaxia's story.
Yes, I like that too. I really did. And I also liked at the beginning of each trial of the book, there was a preview of when Araya was younger, leading up until she was of age.
Right. When I did my summary, I did it on the timeline. But when you're reading the book, the first little snippet you get is that she's rescued by Vincent. And then the next snippet you get 4 or 5 chapters later is that she's curious about her family. And then it leads all up into her training for the Karaji, falling in love with the young boy vampire, and having ultimately been raped by him, and then having to kill him by her own hand. You don't get that very last part until the very end of the book. And I did like that. It was interesting to read each little step as you went. I kind of figured with the way she was talking that something had happened to her at the hands of another vampire. I didn't know it was going to be someone she actually had a relationship with, but I figured at some point she had gotten hurt.
Yeah, because baby girl's on a mission to get all the banned vampires.
She doesn't trust anybody at all. She's very withdrawn. And
personal space. Yes, absolutely.
And she's always hearing Vincent's voice in her head throughout the entire book saying,
what do you think about that? Do you think she has some type of power to do that, or you think it was just her mind doing that?
I don't know.
Because at first I was like, maybe it's just her mind, but as we kept going on and kept on listening and kept on hearing him say, I'm like, is he actually in her mind?
I can see it both ways, because when she's hearing his voice in her mind, it's always when she needs guidance. And so with him being the only person she trusts, it could just be her own mind hearing him tell her, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? That's too risky. That's too dangerous. It could be her own subconscious. But then at the very end of the book, when she dies, she says, that voice in my head is no longer his, it's my own. So maybe he was somehow communicating with her telepathically. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out in the next one.
That's a good little piece that she put in that for us. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, now that we know he's her biological father, maybe that is something that they're capable of, especially since Vincent, like the strongest vampire in their whole clan, like was the leader of the Hayaj. Now she is. So maybe she will likewise have certain abilities. We'll see. But the first trial represented Nyaxia's departure from her home in the White Pantheon. That's where all the gods live. She ventured out beyond the borders of her land, attacked by beasts during the Midnight Walk, and she got lost for miles. So in the first trial, Aurea says it's always beasts. But it wasn't really beasts. It was the blood-born vampires. So the blood-born vampires of the House of Blood are cursed by Nyaxia. They have lost her faith. So in the first trial, she thinks she's fighting demons when she actually finds out she's fighting vampires that are on their last stages of this blood.
When I tell you the way that it came out, I was just like at first I was thinking maybe this is not what I'm like, but then I was like, no way, like she came by swinging. I don't know.
Yeah. I think she's really smart. And while they were all fighting hard and all fighting for their lives, she's the one who figured it out. And she figured out that if she could like pierce the heart
of the leader,
she could kill all of them. Right.
Yeah.
And I also when Rain starts to kind of notice her because he was in it. And he's like, okay, she's not just a human. She's smart. She's capable. Things like that.
So think that she was strong. She was a fighter, but I think her being intelligent and also the teachings that Vincent had gave her ultimately led her to get as far as she went.
Absolutely. I mean, when you train to kill vampires your whole life, I mean, you're gonna have some grit, I think.
Yeah. But these people were so you would never expect it for her to be we didn't know she was half vampire at the time, but
right,
full human, we were expecting her to be able to outsmart with, all these bloodthirsty, bloodlust vampires.
Right. When her unit ended up winning, they communicated that way to kill to all the other units. I mean, she set
the tone.
Yeah. The second trial was the mimic journey to the underworld. She wandered for weeks after escaping the realm of gods before finding her way to the underworld to her husband, who she would eventually marry, Alaris. That trial was the saddest. It was a maze that you had to make your way out of. And in order to distract the vampires, they put humans in the maze. And Aurea wanders upon a little girl that looks like her, reminds her. And I almost think that was unintentional.
I think so too. I also do. I think that it was done intentionally because when she asked Vincent about it, and I feel like he may have went through that himself. I don't know.
I don't know if it was Vincent. I think Nyaxia is going to end up being a ruthless bitch, and I think she did it.
I think she did it. But
okay.
When she asked him about it, he was like, she was like, why are the humans in there? He was like, what do you say, expected, unexpected, or something like that? It was something of that nature. And
because we have to remember that Vincent won the Karashi, right, and he knows a little bit about Nyaxia firsthand. So maybe he was telling her, like, don't let your guard down. Yeah. But I think in this next book, we might find Nyaxia. I think she's nasty.
I do too. I mean, but yeah, think about it though. I would be nasty too if I had to go through all that to find my husband. And then when I find my husband, he's dead.
Yeah. I mean, when you learn her story throughout the book, because at the beginning of each trial, Aurea's telling herself, okay, this is the part of the journey where Nyaxia had to go through this, or Nyaxia had to do this. So this is what it's going to be. So you do learn throughout the book that Nyaxia was pretty much shunned by the gods, found her husband in the underworld, fell in love. Then her husband went to the gods to ask for their favor for Nyaxia. They kill him and make her stumble upon his body after searching for him. So then that's when she goes and she decimates the rest of the gods. I mean, she takes full control and then she creates vampires. So I don't think that she doesn't have a reason to be a nasty bitch, but
I guess it take away the facts.
It doesn't take away that I think we're going to have to deal with her. The fact that she's so happy at the end of the book and like giddy about what's happening.
And then when they first, before the first trial, they was like, we don't care if bloodshed is okay if you're defending yourself, but she wants bloodshed at the trial. Like she wants to see bloodshed.
She wants you to honor her by killing all these contestants in her name.
Well, what is your problem?
And they say throughout the book, like several times, Nyaxia loves when her children squabble. Yeah. So she loves war. She loves battle. She wants to see them fight for power. Something tells me that the Rishon and the Hayashpans fighting this whole time, she's had her hand in that. Like she's been mixing the pot.
Yes. She's the puppet master. Absolutely.
Yeah. But when she finds the little girl during the second trial, she sees herself in the little girl. She's desperate to save her. And at the end, she does end up making it through the trial with the little girl in tow. But she's falling into unconsciousness. She's injured again. And she looks at Rain and she says, please keep her safe. Do not let them take her. When she regains consciousness, Rain takes her into the human districts and shows her that he took the little girl to like a children's home or an orphanage in the human districts. But this moment between her and Rain is like pivotal because this is where he tells her he's a made vampire. He's not born. He still remembers what it was like to be human. He can still feel for humanity and humankind, can still understand their wants, desires, the importance of their lives. But she's still sad. She still sees herself in this little girl because now this little girl's alone. She has no one to take care of her, no one to love her, and she still feels sad. And
Just
throughout
like
the
us.
entire book, Aurea's saying, I'm not human or vampire. And I think that's when her and Rain really connect with each other because they both feel that way. They're neither or.
Yes, I agree. And I know with Rain, I love that redhead, and
In the beginning of the book, I was like, he's so happy.
I love him. So in my mind, when I first started, when he first came out with the whole macho man thing at the beginning, he could do no wrong. Also, there's description of him. He could do no wrong in my eyes.
Right.
So
Right. I mean, he is like the epitome. He's like red hair, strong, muscular, and like he's kind of an asshole at times. And like that is your favorite.
and he's got wings. He
He's
got
got
flying
wings.
away.
Oh, those were some of the favorite moments when he would take her flying.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I
Okay.
love that.
Yes.
That feeling of freedom. And she really hadn't had many experiences being constantly watched in the palace by Vincent and like constantly told death is on every corner.
No,
So
don't trust anybody. Don't look at nobody. Jesus
Right.
Christ.
Right. And one time during the third trial, that is when they go and their mind and body linked. So they
I
can
love
see.
that one.
Mm-hmm. But he says, oh my God, Aurea, are you always this tense? And she's like, yeah, I am. And it shows you a little bit like how she had walked through life her entire life. Like, no wonder she's so strong high. Like, she's constantly all day long, every day, thinking that she's about to get murdered by a vampire.
She thinks she's
She's someone's lunch.
yes. Sorry, like
Yeah.
you should have known. Like while you all are sparring, she won't let you get close to her. Like, sorry, you have to, you gotta know body language. She don't trust y'all. No.
Right. The third trial is when she expels her magic again, the night fire, and she's able, that's really what saves her and Rain, because they both have to make it to the end. And they were able to figure out that if one of them was getting attacked, the other one could go attack said ally, and it would make him falter, give him an advantage. And they were the only group to figure this out, and that's what helped them. But then Aurea is knocked to the ground. The beasts are swarming her, and the only thing that can save her is her magic. And it's the first time she expels her magic in front of her dad, Vincent, as well. What do you think about the night fire?
I thought it was great. Also thought it was great that Vincent was watching because I feel like such like okay, I'm just gonna say it right there. I didn't like him. I didn't like how he did her. I didn't like how he didn't tell her that he was her dad. I didn't like any of that because that's wrong. But anyway, I feel like she proved that she was more than what he thought of her. That's what I felt that moment was for because he always made her feel like she couldn't do or she was not strong enough or capable enough. And she proved she fought off beasts and all these things just with her power alone. She didn't have any help from anybody. She did it by herself. And I feel like he was amazed by her and ultimately that gave her confidence to keep it up.
Absolutely. I mean, he tells her, the whole time that she's weak and frail, and she's gonna die.
Constant letdown.
And he tells her, constantly, you need my strength. But then in that moment, she's like, I have my own strength. Like, I don't necessarily need to be your Corte or have your bond and be your. Clearly, I don't know how to use it, but I've got something in me that's pretty damn powerful.
She tried to atomic bomb.
Yeah. She sure did. She killed all of them and made it to the top, and that's how they ended the third trial. The fourth trial was my favorite.
Yeah.
The one with the animals.
Okay.
And the cave scene.
Yes.
Okay. So in the fourth trial is the weeks leading up to the fourth trial is when Anayaxia had locked him down, said there's no blood. He had some put back, but it wasn't enough. And eventually, like the night before the trial begins, he runs out. Aurea senses that he's getting hungry. He's starting to starve, and she doesn't feel safe. Again, she hears Vincent's voice. You're not safe. You're starving. Get out of there. So they do part ways for that last night. Now, there's a moment where she says, we should separate. And it hurts Rain's feelings. He's like, I'm not an animal. Like, I wouldn't attack you. I can control myself. And she says, at the end of the day, you're a vampire and I'm a human and you're nearing starvation and it could be too hard. And this is probably because of it happened to her. I mean, she knows what it's like to be with a vampire when they lose control. She doesn't ever want to experience that again. But Rain's really hurt by this. He's like, you don't trust me even still, even after everything. But he does go ahead and part ways with her. And then the very next day, the fourth trial starts and they're transported to this land and there's toxic fog everywhere and it's just a real mess, but there are animals in abundance. There's just animals everywhere, you know, lollygagging around. And she's like, oh, good. She's like, good. Then the vampires are distracted and I can get away. But she realizes quickly that the vampires that are feeding on these animals are going crazy and attacking anything, everything. They're losing their minds. So she's like, I've got to find Rain. Even though he's blood hungry, even though we parted ways last night, like I have to find him. And that's really like, girl.
You can see her feelings is involved real heavy.
Girl,
real
you're
heavy.
Already in love. Like,
yes.
you are sending him before yourself because you know if you put him and he's bloodthirsty, what are you going to do?
Like, when she went into a whole forest full of bloodthirsty vampires and crazy animals, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to take off and run and find him. Girl, you love.
She does find him fighting another vampire.
Yeah, she was dedicated.
Yeah, she does find him. He's fighting a Shadowborn. He ends up killing the Shadowborn vampire, but he's injured. And when he turns to her, it's not Rain. Like, he's bloodlust, hungry, starving. It is a different person. She has to, like, sort of battle him and, like, slap him awake and, like, come on, come back to me. Like, what are you doing? He finally does come to. They find shelter for the night in a cave because he's so badly injured, he just can't keep moving. And they need to get away from all the threats. So they go into this cave. And he's like, I have to go. I have to feed or I'll never heal. And she's like, you can't. Like, for one, it's daylight. It's like the sun's rising. For two, all those animals are poisoned. You're going to die if you go out there. And so she says, like, you're going to have to feed for me. And he's like, no. I won't do it. But she's like, we have no other choice. Like, if we both want to make it to the end of this trial, and I want that. I want you to live and I want to survive and I want us both to make it. You're going to have to. So he lets her be the one to do it. She's in complete control the entire time. She straddles him so that she can pull away if she needs to. It's a really intimate moment between the two of them. And it ends up being a spicy moment. Not that they do anything necessarily, but the venom of a vampire makes you feel all kinds of ways. And she sort of succumbs to that. And it's a really intense, intimate, spicy moment between the two of them. I like this probably better than the moment when they actually do the deed, just because I like the tension. I like the build up, the slow burn, like all the little like desires being unleashed. Yeah. But it's really more about like her trust, her ultimate trust. She's trusting him to feed on her and not kill her.
You can tell because he had pulled the knife and set it in between them so it can punch to his chest if he went too far. You can tell she started trusting him when she dropped it. Like she dropped it. Like, I don't need this anymore. I know you're not going to hurt me. That was good.
That was a great scene. I loved everything about it. And it's funny because right before he starts feeding, he says, I know what this means for you. And she's like, of course, Rain knows without me ever telling him what I've been through. Like, he's picked up on enough clues, the scar on her neck, absolute desire not to trust anyone. Like, he has picked up on all these different clues. And then at the very end of the book, you find out it's because he also was abused in a relationship maker. So he knows what it means for her. And that's why he's reluctant at first. But I think that makes it just that much more precious, too.
I think so, too. Two broken souls coming together. I love it.
I love it, too. And that moment is, oof.
That was good. That was a good one.
It was so good.
I like, that's my second favorite. The one with the mind and stuff, when they was in each other's mind, they can feel each other.
Right. Good. And that's probably more or less when they really believe each other's feelings, because she can literally feel his fear for her. She can feel that he's scared something's going to happen to her. Yes. And that, if you can feel it firsthand, like, wouldn't that make dating so much easier? Like, I can feel you love me firsthand through this mind link. Like, that's probably when they both admitted it to themselves, because they couldn't deny it any longer. After having felt it from the other person.
Yeah, that was good.
So they make it to the end of the fourth trial. They have to sort of weave their way through all this toxic fog, and there's only 4 people left at the end. It's Angelica, who's a bloodborne vampire, Ibrahim, who was a vampire from the House of Night. He's Hayaj. Aurea literally knows him, which is kind of shocking that this guy made it to the end, because the Hayaj do something weird, which makes Vincent's commitment to Aurea even more understanding. The Hayaj will kill anybody, any of their children, their brothers, sisters, anybody who may take their name, their power. So Ibrahim was a boy who was born to vampire parents, but he was strong. So in order to make sure he could never defeat them or kill them, to gain their name, their mark, they broke his leg, mangled his leg, tore up his wings, like really hurt him as a child, so that he would never be strong enough to overtake them. And he joins the Karaji because that's his only way out. Like, he's either going to be this mangled, mutilated person under his parents' thumb, or he's going to win the Karaji and he's going to break free.
So
but he makes it. Yeah, he makes it.
Vincent, I think that's the reason why Vincent didn't tell Raya that she was her biological father, because they said that he killed off all his family members just to hold the throne.
I think that proves his love for her a little bit, though, because he could have easily killed her as a child and then there would have never been a threat. But right. I think you're right. I think that's why he didn't tell her, because then he would run the threat of her wanting to go after his power. But I don't know.
I think he loved her in his own crazy sort of way. I do. I really do. Because he didn't have to go back and get her.
I didn't think so until the end. Like, I wish I could if I reread it, I'll be able to notice some things. But like in the beginning, I'm like, he's controlling her. He doesn't love her. Yeah. But now in hindsight, I'm like, he probably really did love her, and he probably really was that terrified for her. But as an adult, he should have told her everything so that she can make her own decisions.
Yeah.
Because kind of brainwashing her into joining the Karaji in the first place is crazy, because only one can make it out. And like, you're putting her life in a huge risk after telling her over and over again that she's so fragile and frail.
And she's only human. You put her in here with all these vampires.
She wanted to find her family. I think she loved Vincent, and she always said, that's my father, I love him. But she wanted to find her own people. She wanted to live a life where she didn't have to look over her shoulder every day in constant fear. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how much you love somebody, like, you don't want to live like that. Like, she wants to stay with Vincent that whole time. And I don't know. I think that's why she wanted to join the Karaji. I don't know still what his intentions were.
I think it's something, because what did you need her for? Why? It can't just be for her benefit, because we know that he doesn't do he doesn't do something that doesn't benefit him.
Well, not only that, but when he says, you can be my Corate, you can ask her to make you my Corate, and we'll have a bond that will help us use each other's strength. She could have asked Nyaxia for anything. She could have asked Nyaxia to make her the strongest human, the strongest vampire. She could have asked her for anything, but he specifically said, make you my Corate, and then we can share each other's strength. So I think some part of him knew she had power.
Yeah.
Or maybe he wanted her to be his Corate, so they were bonded, and she couldn't overthrow him for the throne.
Yeah, because I guess they're good. Yeah.
So maybe that way he could have his daughter, but still be king for the rest of his life. Like,
maybe that was probably the ultimate goal, like that.
Right. Yeah. The fifth and final trial, there's 4 that began. That trial was really eerie to read. Like, the gods. So each 4 contestants had to overthrow 3 zombie corpse people that
tried to die somehow.
They represented the 12 gods that Nyaxia defeated. And it was wild. Like, I can't even remember who her gods were, but one was music and entertainment.
One was the arrow.
Yeah. And then one of Rain's was the god of sea, because he came out of his dripping wet.
This guy, like, I wonder how long he had to hold his breath.
One thing I do wish, this is another reason why it wasn't a 5-star read for me, is that I need a couple of MMC POV chapters.
So we got nothing.
We got no Rain POV chapters. I would love to read about Rain's 3 gods that he had a battle. And I would love to read about that moment where he decides he's going to let her win. Like, because he's fighting for his entire clan, his entire people. Like, he had all these reasons and all, like, because Vincent, while he comes off like, in some parts of the book, like, okay, he's Arya's dad. He was a really bad guy. Like, he killed a lot of innocent people when he took the throne. He killed all the Rishans that were inside the House of Night. Like, he's really a savage. I mean, really.
Very much so.
And Rain was desperate to lead his people out of, poverty and out of all this torture and stuff and take care of them. And so for him to decide in that moment that Arya is special enough and strong enough and courageous enough and brave enough to all die and let her take over, because I believe in her. I believe she'll change things. For him to do that, I mean, I would love to read that from his point of view.
I would too.
I would love it.
That right there was one of the most famous moments of the book, because first of all, when they went and talked about, about history and all everybody that was dependent on him and how he came about even joining the Kajari, like at this point, I wouldn't be able to just die because I like you.
Loves her, Elaine. He doesn't just like her. But yes, it's a lot. I mean, I think that's why when she brings him back, he's like,
oopsies, sorry.
Okay, you're kind of forcing my hand here now. I was gonna die and let you take care of everything, but now you brought me back. I have to be right.
Watch this, lady.
I have to be right by my people. You brought me back, so now I have to do what I came here to do.
Yeah.
Which
kind of shocked me though, because she gave because when I read it, I didn't think that Naxia was going to give him
a wish.
Reward. A wish, yes.
Yeah.
I thought that he was just going to be able to live, and then that would have been it. But
when she says, I wish Rain would have won, I think that she didn't say, I wish she would bring Rain back to life. She said, I wish Rain would have won the Kajari. But I was scared that she was going to die. Like, I was like, okay, are you taking his place? Because only one can live. So I was surprised by that. But again, Nyaxia loves the drama. She's like, okay, let me get my popcorn. Let's see what happens now. Because now that Rain's alive, I know that Vincent is his mortal enemy. I know he came here to kill him, and I'm going to sit back and watch this happen. That's what I'm saying. She's nasty. She's nasty.
Yeah, she was good at that one, but she already knows.
So let's talk about this ending and what do you think? So during the 5th trial, something happens that I think is going to be, it didn't seem important at the time, but I think it's going to be super important in the next book. There's a moment where there's 3 of them left. So Ibrahim is the first to die. And then it's Angelica, Rain, and Araya. And Araya is fighting Angelica. She doesn't want anything to do with Rain. Angelica's not fighting Rain at all. She's solely focused on Araya. And Rain looks up in the stands and he nods. And then a moment later, Angelica falters and Araya is able to kill her. So at the end of the book, you find out that he was making a deal with Septimus, who is like a prince of the House of Blood. No, like we don't know anything really about the House of Blood at this point. All we know is that they're cursed and eventually they become like creatures and animalistic and they're crazy. But outside of that, we don't really know anything about them. But now we find out that this guy, Septimus, who popped up a couple different times in the book, is their prince. And he's made a deal with Rain that if he could overthrow Vincent, so they had talked about this before and Rain had refused. But he made a deal with Rain that if he could overthrow Vincent, that the House of Blood would help him. He would bring his army and he would help them take the city back. He would help them overturn all the Hayaj vampires. But Rain would owe him a favor. And Rain's like, no, I don't want to make a deal with you. But in that moment, Angelica was purposely going after Araya with the intention to kill her and to force his hand to make that deal with Septimus.
Oh, and going to kill her.
She was going to kill her. She was ready to die for her people. Which, again, why? What is this about? What is?
Oh, she had it against her from the moment that she killed the guy in her house.
Yeah. But when she dies, she says, "Good luck," and that to me is so like, what do you mean? Yes. She's not. I almost feel like she's not even sorry to go. And I like her blood curse was nearing its ending stages. So I think she sacrificed her life for her people too. But I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, do you all want a favor from Nyaxia? Like, do you all want the blood curse gone? And you think that Araya is the way to get to it? Something tells me we don't know everything about Araya yet.
I know. Also, the guy,
Yes.
the prince, like it's when we did run into him in the book, it was always a point where it was. This felt like he was at specific points at specific times, and
He was always
this,
lurking. He was always lurking around, and he always picked really opportune times to talk to Rain and Araya alone, almost even to gain, Araya's trust. Because
he tried. Yeah.
the
And,
first time they met, she had wandered outside to get fresh air or something. It was after the first trial, and he said, "You cost a lot of people a lot of money because people bet on the trials to see who will die and who will." So obviously, a bunch of people bet on Araya to die since human, whatever.
yes.
And she's like, "I'm sorry I cost your pocketbook." And he says, "Not me. I bet on you."
Yeah.
What do you know?
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like he's always at a certain place. So it's always beneficial to him and to her, it seems like, but she doesn't know how it's beneficial to her at the time. I don't know.
I don't know. He's a tricky one. I think he's going to be really important in the next book. But now he basically owns Rain. I mean, he can ask for a favor at any time, and there's no like. I hate when people would make deals like that in books. Like you should be a little bit more specific about what favor you owe somebody. Like
This in 2025. I mean, we got to start
right
now.
right, because like he could ask you for anything, and he saved Araya, so you have to do it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the book, all the Bloodborne military is there in the house, in the palace, and Rain forces Araya to marry him more or less. And this is a really kind of difficult thing to read, I felt like, because when an author makes you fall in love with somebody the way she made us fall in love with Rain, and then you are kind of like, damn, I'm betrayed because you could have trusted her enough to tell her. You maybe even have to kill her daddy in front of her. Like there's things moved a little bit differently.
That was so sad. She but you did tell her to turn her head, and she didn't want to. So I mean, it's isn't that what they say?
But during their vows, they have to like say, "I give you my body, my soul, and my heart," and she refuses to say that. She's too broken.
Right. I agree with that on that.
And he says she doesn't have to say it. It's okay. So something tells me in the next book is the very beginning anyway. It's going to be a little bit like Iron Flame reminiscent, where he's going to have to earn all her trust back and make her fall in love with him again.
Oh, he's going to do a whole lot of begging and groveling. It's going to be a whole lot. He's going to have to basically carry that lady everywhere she goes and bathe her and everything else. He's going to have to. She don't like him right now. Because he lied.
Right. And he's very quick to say he didn't lie. He just didn't tell her all the truth.
Feeling itself. That's a lie.
I think when you're like 200 years old, you figure out how to lie without really lying.
A lie's a lie.
Right. So do you have any favorite quotes from the book? Or any favorite parts?
Okay, so one of my favorite people, even though they didn't have a long run, was Alana, because I felt like she was vibrant and she was an old lady, but she was just living her best life and doing whatever she pleased. I feel like
she's a fun character to read.
She was, and I feel like the interaction between her and Araya, them not telling each other they loved them, but they knew that they loved them. Them not wanting each other to leave. Like I feel like that was a good space, especially for someone like Araya, because she didn't have anyone but Vincent, and knowing that she had this lady that could be maybe a mother figure for her or a grandmother figure for her. I feel like that was a good touch to the book.
It was great, and it was really enjoyable to read, and it was even more heartbreaking when 1/3 of the way through the book they kill her.
I know, and then she's hearing her when they're killing her, she's trying to get to her. I didn't even know this lady for this long because, like I said, this is new to us older, so I didn't know this lady for this long, and I'm sitting here almost in tears because she's trying to get to her, but as fast as she could, and the way the Moon Palace is set up. Everything is switching and trying, and she can't get to it, but she can hear. Oh my goodness, it was just.
It was agonizing. It was terrible. It was
crazy.
And then but Ion was so important to her that even though she died, like before the first trial even took place, you see this all throughout the book with the purple silk scarf or whatever she finds. She wears it in her moment when she's like feeling her strongest. Like she really does pull on that relationship And
Even with the cigars, with the prince having the cigars, like, even can I have one of those, please? Just so it could remind her. Yeah.
Yeah. It was really comforting for her to have that. But it made it that much sadder when she lost it. And it just I felt like that was just a huge reiteration of, you can't trust anybody. You can't have anybody. That's why I was like, this is Stockholm syndrome. Like, I feel like he's kidnapped her, because that's what they do. They brainwash you to think that you can't survive without them. And that's how this read to me. I was like,
Yeah.
he knew she was powerful. He kidnapped her, and he was so desperate to brainwash her into believing that he was the only person who would ever love her. I don't know. I still feel like it read that way. I don't.
Yeah, you feel like it. Yeah, I can see why you say that, because in some instances I was thinking that too, but then in the back of my mind it's like something else is going on, because the way he kept belittling her and the way he kept trying to keep her to himself, it did read like Stockholm syndrome. So, yeah.
And
what
I
was your
did.
favorite part?
Well, my favorite. Let's talk about, since we're talking about characters, let's talk about Mish a little bit.
Okay.
So she's quickly
one after you.
Okay. She's quickly turning into like best friend material.
Oh yeah, I love her energy.
Bestie vibe. She is also a turned vampire. So I think those are the people, like, in a world of vampires, there's not very many. Aurea's not going to connect to very many humans, because she said, I'm no longer a human. I've grown up in this world. Little did she know, she really isn't just a human. But she relates mostly to turned vampires, because they were human and now they're vampires. So they know what it's like to be both. They know what it's like to live in both worlds. And Misha's also a turned vampire. She's bubbly. She's happy. She's like a burst of good energy when Rain and Aurea are both kind of like dark clouds sometimes. Like, she's the giddy, happy person in the book. And then she gets hurt, and it's heartbreaking, because you find out that the way she's been able to. So all along in the book, you're like, it's strange, because she's able to wield fire from a different god. Actros, or I don't remember what the god's name was, but the vampires can only rely on Nyaxia. So the fact that she's pulling this fire from another god is kind of like Aurea's like a mate. She's like, I don't know how she did that. Well, you find out during the attack on the Moon Palace, she was a priestess to this certain god in her human life, and that's why she's been able to access the power. But in her desperate moment of need, when she was being attacked by Nightfire, by demons, called for his help, and he didn't answer. And she's distraught. I mean, she's literally burned alive, and all she can keep thinking about is that he didn't answer her call. This god that she spent her life worshiping.
That girl was broken. I mean, broken. That was so sad.
I don't even think she fully regained herself before the end of the book, which I'm hoping that we see her in the second book in a better place. Because really, even at the end of the second book, she was still dealing with this loss. It's like the last part of her human life she was like clinging to was this relationship with this god that she had spent her human life worshiping. And then for him to abandon her when she needed him most, it's like, it's always the happy people that get screwed in these books.
And they take it off parties. Yeah, it's bad.
And it was.
So I want to give an MVP to Abraham. I bet, because he was very much so the underdog, very much so tortured. I was expecting him to be one of the first ones that died, like literally when they mentioned him and the state of how he was and what his parents did to him. I was like, oh, he's not going to see it. He's going to be one of the first ones. But he made it to the last trial. He came swinging, even when in the, I think it was the third trial, when they had to put the bodies on the stone for the door to open, and I thought
the second trial, the maid,
second trial, So even when that happened, I thought he was dead. I was like, okay, he's going, he come back out swinging again. I'm like, he's not dying. I don't know what he's got going on in his body, but he will not die. He's got more lives than my cats, all of them put together. Like, this is ridiculous.
I'm sure he was dead during the second trial too. I'm not sure how he survived, but he's just like a metaphor in itself, like mutilated body, but heart of a warrior. Like,
my goodness,
he was not giving up. And even at the very end, when he and Aurea are fighting, because he gets to her first before Angelica in the very last tournament, and she is more or less kind of holding back, and he's like, no, don't dishonor me. Like, let's fight. Let's fight. And she says, okay, we'll fight. And then I'll honor you with a good death. And when she kills him, he says, I'm glad it was you. And it's like,
That was awesome. But he came out with one eye. Like, I would have been like, I don't want to tell the truth.
can we just like disqualify him? Like, he joined the karate with like half a
Half
leg
a
and
foot. Like,
like
yeah.
holes in his wings. And now he's got
Right.
one eye. Can we
He-
like that? She says before the fifth trial started, he was in such bad shape, like he could barely stand. And somehow he still battled through
Right.
3 guys. Like,
He was a tough cookie.
he was tough. I agree with that. You got to give him the MVP because he was definitely
Absolutely.
fighting against all odds up in there. What do you think about Jasmine?
Okay, so with her, so we seen the relationship with her and Vincent, and we seen how hard she went and the the attitude that she had. But if I truly think about it, I feel like anybody that is protecting the throne
Has to be hard.
has to be like that. They have to be skeptical of everybody. They have to be wiser than everybody in the room because you never know what's going to happen. So I think that she would really be on Araya's side because in her defense, I feel like she is whoever's on the throne is who she's dedicated to, who she gives her all to. So I feel like that she's going to come in handy once
She
the
definitely is
next
coming
book.
off loyal. She's loyal to the high odds line.
Yeah.
But through the book though, it was almost like spoken to that there was something going on between her and Vincent.
I'm sure. You know, vampires love to get that love to do the do. So I'm pretty sure that
What were you about to say? Yes, it is said that vampires love sex and they love fight. They love sex and fighting and all the crazy things.
so I can see him with the
There,
break and the
maybe
roll.
I am, but I
Yeah.
think you're right. I think she came off as kind of a bitch and kind of hard and kind of crusty, but like you said, she's loyal to the high odds line. She is like loyal warrior to their lineage, and she's just one of those like no craps kind of person. Like, don't I give no shits. This is what my job. And when she comes to Araya's kind of shocked, but she's like,
I was too.
she's like, "No, you're the heir. I don't make the choice of who gets the heir mark." She said that. She's like, I wouldn't have chosen you. And I actually would have said, who do you think should be the heir? It wouldn't have been you, but I don't get to make that choice. The goddess Nyaxia makes that choice. And she chose you, and I am a warrior. Like, I am here for you and this line in our clan, and I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Yeah. So I think she's gonna be loyal to her. I don't know. What was your favorite part about the book? Your favorite part?
I'm a romantic, so I think the cave scene was probably my favorite just because I love that, like, giving yourself wholly to someone and trusting them when she had such a hard time trusting someone. And there were a couple different, but that's not my favorite line. My favorite line of the book is from the night that they actually have sex. And she's being very playful. Like, they're trying to forget about the fact that tomorrow they have to kill one another. So they are living in this moment wholly. And she's being very playful. And she says, should I make you beg? And he they tease each other for a little bit, but then he says, and he gets real serious, and he says, I would beg. For you, I would. You have fucking destroyed me, Aurea. Do you know that? And I'm like, it's the love declaration for me. Are you? I would beg. What?
I'm telling you. And he's got that way in her too.
And then she says, I would beg for him to break for him, cut myself open like an animal for dissection. He held me open that way, not just my body, but my soul too.
So, so one of my gripes about this book is they didn't tell each other. I know that they was enemies to lovers. I get it. But they didn't tell each other a lot of what they was thinking. And it was almost like I wanted to have more of a romance perspective about the book. I wanted them to have more moments like that. If it was having them, but it was within themselves. Like, you got to be romancing with yourself. What are you doing?
Not as much fun if you do it alone or just I agree. That's another reason why this wasn't a 5-star for me. It was an enemies to lovers slow burn, which is top. That's number 1 for me. Enemies to lovers slow burn is my favorite trope. I've read ones that were done much better because there wasn't a lot for me to really be like, this is a really good enemies to lovers slow burn. Is I like all the glances across the room and the brushes of hands and the innuendos and the playful banter. And there wasn't a lot of that. And granted, they were fighting for their lives like every other chapter. If an example, like Arizan Feyre slow burn, they were constantly having playful banter and innuendos and like exposing themselves enough that they cared about the other person while still holding their guard. Where this book, it was like, yeah, and it was few and far between. The moments, the touches, lingers, looks, there were few and far between.
Yes, and the reader, it didn't convey to the reader how they got to the point of kill me, basically like kill me, I'll die.
Killing himself.
My mission. Yeah, okay, I'll forget my mission for my people, for you. But we didn't get the lead up to that moment with characters, the character development.
The emotion didn't match the act.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
because if you're willing to literally slide a blade into your own heart after a 200-year life for someone,
I need more.
It wasn't burn the world down. It didn't.
No.
It gave, I care about her, I love her, I'm intrigued by her, but it didn't give
see her die type stuff.
It didn't give, I'm going to burn the world down for her. Like,
right.
It didn't give
myself. And all the greater good of what I stand for.
Right.
For you.
For her. Yeah. It didn't give that. I'm hoping that there's more in the next book because we are going to go ahead and follow up with the second book next week. I think it's called of the Star-Crossed King. And so that is going to be on our next episode. This is a series. There is 3 books right now with a 4th coming out in August, but this is a duet. So this book and the next book is just about Oraya and Rain's story. The 3rd book starts with Misha's story, and I think we'll wait to read that until the 4th one comes out in August because it's also a duet. So we will read those when the 4th one comes out in August and do it on the podcast.
I do hope that we found out more about the House of Shadows and the House of Blood because we did not get enough about that. We really don't know anything, really.
We know very little about the House of Blood, just that they're blood cursed. They crossed Myaxia at some point in their history. Prince Septimus is a tricky fish, but we don't know anything about the House of Shadows.
House of Shadows. No, my notes are blank. So I wrote all it's blank.
She would say it's a House of Shadow vampire, but she would never go into anything about their politics. They're separate. Like the House of Night is its own political, and then you have House of Blood and House of Shadow. So the Rishon and the Hayaj are constantly battling for House of Night. That's just House of Night. Like you don't know anything about these lands, what their political setup is, like what their powers are, because
it's not explained. Hopefully we get that in the next book. Because we got said maybe Mishki is from one of these places, and maybe they'll explain more about one of either the House of Shadows or the House of Blood, maybe in Purple.
What if her and Septimus? I don't know. I have no idea. But Septimus doesn't seem like someone I'm going to hate. I don't. Me either. When I read him, I find him interesting. I want to keep reading his story. And I'm like, I know the 3rd book's about Mish. I don't know anything else about it. But I'm like, who's a character that I could see lining up right now to be somebody I would want to read about? It could be. I'd like to read about it. Like I find him very
like a cocky man, but a real confident cocky. I love it.
Yeah, he seems really interesting. He seems definitely more morally gray than Rain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he seems a little bit darker. But also the way that the author has described him up until this point, she's made him very attractive. Like she says he's very attractive. He's, and she's made him very coy. Like, I feel like he would give better banter than maybe Ren. I love Ren, but like you said, he's like closed off a little bit. So
yes, but the ones that have the good banters and the good comebacks is the cocky ones, the self-confident,
the ones we would smack in real life.
In real life, we love them in the book because yes, absolutely.
The ones we would smack and tell our daughters never to look at twice are the ones we're like, ooh, insult me again, please. Like, that's our toxic trait. That's fine. That is fine. Our toxic trait. But yeah, like I said, I enjoyed it a lot. I'm excited to read the next book and talk about it next week. We'll see. I'm excited.
I'm excited.
I hope we get more. I hope Rain opens himself up a little bit more.
I do too, because I really want to know more about his wife and child. If the child came too, like I want to know more about that.
Right. He's got a whole lot of past. He's 200 years old. So he had a mortal wife and child. And then he had a relationship with the queen's wife, Nessin.
Yeah.
And we don't really get, and that's another reason why I didn't feel like it gave Burn the World Down for her. Has a lot of love interests. Yeah. Not that he won't end up loving her more than them, but it didn't get the world down.
Yeah, it didn't make me, like you said in the beginning, it didn't make you want to keep reading, because I've had my times where I have my floors with books, I've cooked with books, I've stayed up late with books, going to work with bags underneath my eye.
We've gone to work. We've gone to work and been like zombies, and we're like, "What's wrong with you?" And you're like, "I'm up till 3 o'clock reading," and I'm like, "Ooh, what are you reading?" Oh, but I can go without sleep and be up until 3 o'clock reading. This is what you look like. Let me know. I want kind of a good book though. Is when you're exhausted. Or when you come over to my house and there's dishes in the sink and laundry piled up, and it's like, I forgot all my adult responsibilities for the last 4 years for this book. Like, so no, this wasn't that, but it was good.
It was good.
I wasn't.
And my writing style is unique. It's different. So I'm interested in what the next book holds. I also did, like I said, there's a novella in between this book. So I want to know if people are listening, what do you think? Do you think we should read the novella before the second book, or do you think we should read the second book first?
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know.
I want to do it in the order it needs to be done. And if we need to read the novella in between, if it's small, we can cover both next week. Or if it's big, we can make a few episodes. We'll just have to let us know. I'm not sure. We'll have to look into it. But I'm excited for our next 5-star read, because
I am too.
Like, we will have 5-star reads this year, and I'm excited.
And I think I know what the 5-star read is going to be, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to write a piece of paper when it happens.
It's probably the same book that I'm super excited to read, and we have been going back and forth about it for a while. And I'm like, we just need to commit. We just need to. There's a couple of different books. Honestly, there's a few different series on our TBR that we have been like, it's a big commitment. That's a lot of books, but something tells me it's going to be worth it.
I think so. I mean, the TBR is just, I'm 5 foot. And the TBR is probably taller than me. So,
and we won't just read fantasy. There's a bunch of things we want to read. I'm here for
everything.
I'm here for historical romances.
Everything.
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes she come to look, which way? Oh, I'm reading my ratchet stuff. I'm reading my cartel stuff.
I'm just reading one of my hockey romances. No big deal. Like, I'll read anything and everything.
We'll read anything. The point of reading this for us is to escape and to live in a different world. So it doesn't matter what I'm reading. As long as it holds my attention, I'm good with it.
I mean, I will say that romance is probably my favorite genre, but I will read anything. But I like to say I'm a happily married person, but I get to fall in love over and over and over and experience that through these characters. And what a nice thing. Like, you're married 10 years, whatever. You're like, oh, I love you. But to get to experience that first kiss, that first brush of the hands is such a sweet thing.
Yes.
We're excited. We'll continue.
All right, guys.
All right. Thank you for listening. If you made it through the end of our babbling and to the end of our episode, we appreciate it. Go ahead and give us a like. You can follow us on Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, become a subscriber to YouTube. Any little bit helps to encourage us to keep going. Head over to our socials. We have TikTok, Insta, and Facebook. We have some content on there that is short, fun stuff that we don't get to share on here. I think this week we're going to do a book boyfriend rating, so that'll be fun. Head over there. Give us some likes and follows on there as well. Thanks.
So tell us who your book boyfriend is and see if we have similar tastes.
Or make recommendations. Yeah. We're here for a good new book boyfriend.
Oh, yeah. We love
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.